And shalom, everyone. March 9th, 2026 today. We are on the Shabbat of Vayakhel-Pekudei. It's also Shabbat Chodesh this week, with the with Nisan coming, Rosh Chodesh Nisan coming the following week. Rosh Chodesh Nisan is, I believe, the Thursday of next week. There's some radio in the background, but I'll just mute. Okay. If you, all right, there we go. And So I want to focus on Vayakhel-Pekudei, go into the kind of method that we enjoy here, which is what's the story going on here. Um, I am particularly excited in this Parsha, especially at the end of Pekudei, uh, because the I do think that there's more here than meets the eye. Reading Vayakhel and Pekudei, these are two parshas that basically repeat a lot of the material that we saw in Truma and Tetzaveh, namely, what you are supposed to make and what you are to make it with. And here these parshas come and tell us they made this and they made it with this, right? And we get an accounting in Pekudei, but at the very very end of Pekudei, we get. I think it's almost rhapsodic in the sense that, it tells us what was placed where, when, and how these things were put together. And so it's the assembly of all the parts, and the assembly of all the parts is quite an extraordinary moment. That the people see everything being put together. It occurs to me that I would have put up a clip from the movie Witness. I've shown this before, but I go back to these iconic moments in movies. The barn raising in Witness, which is really a climactic moment in the movie. The whole, if you remember this, I mean, and if you don't, well, just imagine a whole Amish community coming together to raise a barn or raise a home for one of their families, and everybody's involved in it, and everybody puts it together, and it's just a moment of great elation, great joy, as they hammer the frames and they hoist them up and they put the beams together, and then by the end of the day they have a house. Sometimes you can see these Habitat for Humanity. They do this. They bring crews of people, and within a day or two, you have a house. And there's an extraordinary amount of satisfaction when you are involved in building something. And I always get that feeling at the end of this parsha when the thing is built and it's an extraordinary amount of satisfaction. Moses blesses it and all that. But there are some details in this story that stand out. They are puzzling details, as always, and one of them has to do with the ark itself and what's in the ark. And it occurs to me that the verse that conveys the placing of the tablets in the ark, it seems to be that's a great verse that signifies things are coming together. I just want to pull that verse up for you. It's chapter 40, verse 20. I have it here in Hebrew only. I'll share the screen in a second. It is, here we go. So it says as follows, chapter 40, verse 20. Vayikach Vayiten et ha'idut el Haaron. I'll translate. Vayikach means he took. Vayiten et ha'idut el Haaron. He gave, or he put the testimony into the chest, into the box. Vayasem et abadim al Haaron. He placed the poles on the Aron, the box. Vayiten et hakaporet al Haaron milmala. He placed the covering, the atonement cover, kaporet it's called, on top of it. And that, as you recall, is the cover with the the cherubs. Vayaveh et Aaron al Mishkan. He brought the box into the sanctuary, into the Mishkan. Vayasem et parochet hamasach. He placed the curtain separating it. Vayasech al Haron ahidut. He placed it over the testimony, over the box. Kasher tziva Adonai et Moshe. That the way that God had told him. So what we have here, is I read this and one of these days I'm going to write a little article about some of the ways of approaching Torah. Okay, and in this way, I'll give you this example, and I've given you a couple of examples. One of the ways that I try to unpuzzle or decode or unravel or examine a text is count the words, count the phrases, count the verbs, and see if there's any pattern here. And in fact, it may be simply a coincidence, but there are 7 elements in this moment. These are 7 verbs. Vayikach, vayiten, vayasem, vayiten, vayaveh, vayasem, vayasech. Okay. And the fact that at least 2 of those verbs, vayiten and vayasem, are doubled. He gave, or he put, and he placed. Vayiten, vayasem, vayiten, vayasem. What it tells me is, well, maybe it's a coincidence, and that's all fine. Or maybe there's a structure here, and maybe because it's 7, it says, it has the divine imprint of God's presence here, because 7 is the divine number, and none of the other elements have this kind of phraseology. It's not worth going into to examine them. This one kind of stands out, and it should stand out because it's the Ark of the Covenant, or here referred to as simply edut, the testimony, and what that testimony is. So, as usual, I'm trying to both visualize this and create the story around this, and create, I guess, an emotional context for what this is. And I'm projecting onto this moment a story of completion, an emotional context of that this is solid, that by placing the tablets into the box, we have the completion of a story. But that raises a whole set of questions, which include, well, which tablets? And of course, the first set of tablets are broken, and these are the second set of tablets, and we'll look at that in depth in a second. The rabbis have a beautiful midrash on this and say that both the first set of tablets and the second set of tablets are placed in the ark, and that becomes a metaphor for lots of different things, including Alzheimer's, believe it or not, dementia and other forms, where a scholar has the whole teaching and the fragments of teaching, and those of us who have lived around people with dementia understand what that is. And there's a whole taxonomy of these things, and where individuals who are experiencing this will be able to only reference a word and a word out of a context, and you know that there's a person there, and you are experiencing only one fragment of a person, and it's quite a tragic circumstance to encounter that and to have that kind of conversation. And so the rabbis use the fragments of the tablets and the whole tablets as metaphor for a person. Homiletically, we could also say that it is about homiletically. It's saying the broken tablets were the tablets that had the original covenant, and the whole tablets now are this second set of the second covenant here, or the reiteration of that covenant. And that, what's so fascinating about this theologically is that all we have is the copy, the copy of the first. The first is never going to be accessible, and that is never going to be accessible to us because of that great rupture that happened at Mount Sinai, which we read about this past week, where the children of Israel worshipped the golden calf in violation of the commandments. No matter who was responsible, and I have my I can at least try and mount a plausible defense for the children of Israel under the circumstances. Nevertheless, they're still guilty of the violation, and because of that, we don't have access to the original. There's never going to be access to the original. So I'm letting this verse sit with us for a second and using one technique, which is, well, look at the pattern here, and I indented it to give a kind of climax to milmala, that the actual moment is the placing of the covering on it. That is to say, the sealing up of the covenant in the box. That would be, according to the structure of this verse, the epochal moment, or the pinnacle moment here, that it's placed in the box and that it's covered and that it's sealed. The sealing of something is an important moment, and I find that to be significant. I think that it comes into different customs and different kind of ritual, and I think it has there's a certain anthropological significance to sealing something, to closing it. Of course, the thing that comes to mind first is burial, stimat hagolel, that is the completion of a tomb, entombment, and that in moment is a very, very vivid boundary moment in the process. Susie, I have a question though.
This just occurred to me. Are there any midrashim about the first and second tablets differing, like for Shemot and Devarim?
I don't know offhand of these differences. I'm gathering that they are, because the textual differences between the Exodus 20 text and the Deuteronomy, was it 4 or 5 text? I think it's Deuteronomy 5. There are significant Zachor Shamor, etc., and there are other variants. Okay, and are the tablets? Do they record? Do the second set of tablets record the variants in the text? Don't know. Are there discussions about what the differences are? I'm sure there are. If they're not in Midrash, they're certainly in the medieval commentaries who will focus on these kinds of questions. So I almost want to say it doesn't matter, and what I'm thinking of, and here I'll put in a second kind of technique that I think is really important as readers. One is kind of just the textual analysis. That's fun. That's puzzles. That's kind of counting words and structure, etc. But a more imaginative technique, which I've shared and talked about before, is, go inside the text. Imagine you're there. Imagine you're standing outside. Imagine you are, beside Moses. Imagine you are, and this is, I think this is in reading altogether. This is certainly the storyteller's technique, which is the storyteller, when you're telling a folk tale or any other kind of tale, the storyteller, the magic of storytelling is that you are there with the action. And I mean, the best example I can think of, in our theatrical experience is, Andrew Lloyd Webber, Joseph in the Technicolor Dreamcoat is a perfect example, because the narrator is part of the cast, and the narrator has this primary role, and the narrator is talking directly to, or singing directly to the audience, and she's right there. It's usually she, and she's turning and pointing, etc., etc., and she's being the storyteller, and the action is playing out there, and she's describing what's going on right there as if you are there. Now, I'm sure that Joseph is not the only theatrical production that has that technique. I mean, that's just storytelling. Storytelling is once upon a time there were three bears, and when you were telling the three bears, you're actually there, and you are, the mama bear, the papa bear, the baby bear, and you are there inside of it, and to make it engaging, rather than to be boring, is to say, I can see it right now that the baby bear, the bowl of oatmeal, the gold, and you are seeing it in front of you unfold, and that's what's happening. So the technique that I want is, well, Moses places the tablets inside, okay? And what does that mean? And it has tremendous significance in that it is the archival moment that these things are meant to last forever, and that these things have a story to them. And so what I want to do today is just kind of trace the story of the tablets, and then kind of ask, well, what happens to them, and do we ever get anything? Are they ever used? And I want to show you some examples of where this kind of motif actually exists in our lives, in people's lives, and it's not as far removed as you think. So I'm going to hold that as the suspense part, but let me talk. I'm going to go to the text. We'll do the series of texts here. Story of the tablets. Story of the tablets. Boom. Here we go. 1 second. All right. Okay. So the first time we get the tablets was back in Parshat Mishpatim. Vayomer Adonai Moshe alei elai ha'ara v'yesham. Come to me up the mountain, remain there, that I may give you tablets of stone. That's the first time that we hear about tablets. Chapter 24:12, Mishpatim. I'm going to give you etna lecha et luchot ha'even. First time these are mentioned. Stone tablets. V'torah v'mitzvah asher katavti la'orotam. Instruction and command that I've written down to instruct them. Okay, another class we could do on, well, is it just two tablets? Is there another? Are there other documents here that I have written? Good question, worthy of our study. But we're going to focus on luchot ha'even, the tablets of stone. Okay. Next time they appear is last week's parsha, and the moment before the delay. Now I mentioned on Shabbat, the story of the golden calf. Does the story of the golden calf start where he gives him the tablets, or the story where it speaks about Moses was delayed? Good question. Not going to deal with it. Vayiten el Moshe kichalato ledaber ito b'har Sinai shnei luchot ha'edut. He gives it to him, luchot even. So we have the tablets of testimony, tablets of stone, ketuvim be'etzbah Elohim. Now we know that there's something special about them. We'll go back to the first one. V'etna luchot even. Earlier, it doesn't tell us that they were written by the finger of God, but here, after Moses' his first sojourn on the mountain, he gets these tablets, and these are tablets of testimony, tablets of stone, ketuvim be'etzbah Elohim, written with the finger of God, whatever that means, okay? And I'll stop here for a second and say, whatever that means is, the question of, we can't speak of God in anthropomorphic terms, God having a body. So Maimonides, and of course, a whole tradition will say, what does this mean? How do we translate Etzbah Elohim? The miraculous way, and of course the rabbis have the special, the thing that was created, Ben Hashmashot, at the very end of creation, the special incising, snail or whatever it was called, carves the thing out. Okay, but God, it's to say it's God's finger is we'll set aside the anthropomorphism of it, but there's something divine about it. That God is directly involved in it. That would be, today we would say, well, sure, God did it. It was a laser. God laser etched the tablets, and that actually makes a lot of sense because it's energy, and it's not physical in the sense that it's photons or waves or particles or whatever it is, and that doesn't have a body. It's not matter, unless, of course, you apply the matter to energy equation. It may have been matter at some point. We're way off of now. It's something. Okay, Alana, you have a question. Go ahead.
You just answered my all my questions. How did it really happen?
How did it really happen? So, so I know I put myself
I
into
don't want
this.
to put you.
I'll tell you something. I put myself into this trap all the time because I like the question, and I apply the question to almost everything in the Torah, and it's a good question. It is in fact, it is, one of these questions that how we approach Torah, which is, I say, here you look at the text, here you can put yourself inside it, and one of the questions that emerge from when you put yourself in the story is try and explain to someone how the things happen, and that applies to the plagues. That applies to, I mean, we just built the Mishkan, and I can recall many conversations with this class about where do they get this stuff? How are they coming out with tens of thousands of ounces or grams of gold and all that? I mean, it doesn't make sense at all, and so we go to one end of the spectrum, which is, well, of course it happened the way it says, and we just don't know. And then the other side of the spectrum is, well, it's all allegory anyway. It's all symbol, and it's not a direct reference to anything. Skip, go ahead.
Uh, Rabbi, I look at the Torah and I look at it as a road map. It is a map for my life.
Yeah, and it becomes as a map or as a metaphor. It has it draws our imaginations in. Okay.
But but Rabbi, I look at it and that's how I try to live my life.
Yeah. Good. All right. Let's move on into the next passage here,
Thank
which
you, Rabbi.
is Moses. So Vayired Moshe minahar. This is Moses coming down a mountain, and he's got the tablets in his hand. Ushnei luchot ha'idut biyado. Luchot ktuvim mishnei Avraham mizeh hem ktuvim. Tablets written on both their sides. And again, this aspect of the tablets itself speaks to the question of, well, how are they made and how are they written? And there are various interpretations of side to side that have to do with just the history of writing. It's called baustrophedon, the way the ox goes. It's almost like an S. You writing. We take for granted that you write a text, and we are English people, so we write from uh, left to right. I write so often in Hebrew. I'm writing from right to left, left to Hebrew, right to left, English, left to right, and that those conventions evolved over centuries. Okay, people, of course, did not always write, and before they wrote, they carved or they used different kinds of methods for writing. Um, and the method that we have today only got consolidated, in a certain period. But it's quite likely that the writing in the era of the Iron Age, where the Bible emerges, there is writing that goes around a surface, such that either you're talking about a flat surface where the writing goes from right to left, left to right, right to left, alternating lines, or a conical surface where the writing goes around it. And we have evidence of that. We have archaeological evidence of all of these things. The writing goes around. So you're actually, a tablet, luchot, is not something that it's certainly not the things that we depict in synagogue. That's for sure. I hope everybody's got that. But I mean, I have here this would be a good metaphor for a tablet, which is this is my external hard drive, okay, and you can't see anything in it, and you certainly can't read it, but you need a machine to read it, and you put it into your computer, and it reads it, okay, and it's about this size, okay. That's the size of a tablet, which is about the size of the text of the Ten Commandments. It's also about the size, and I've shown this on a Parasha sheet a couple of years ago, the size of the Shema, about the same number of words and letters. Okay, so our iconographic depictions of the tablets, having them loom above us, with they're all wrong. I shouldn't say they're all wrong. They're all they don't depict what was probably the size of them, and I'll show you pictures of that shortly. Okay. So God gave him the tablets. Moses is coming down with the tablets written on both their sides. Okay.
But, Rabbi,
Yes, go ahead.
why do you assume that they're so small?
I'll tell you why. And I appreciate the question, because this is where I know I play this game of miracles and reality, okay, but I should have a floor tile here, which is a stone that is about that size. If I had a larger stone, I wouldn't be able to carry it. It's so heavy. Okay, look, when we depict the tablets, we depict them almost like tombstones. Okay, you cannot lift a tombstone. It's just so heavy. All right, these things weigh hundreds of pounds, maybe even tons. Okay, the density of stone, etc., etc. So. One. Number two is, certainly Moses wouldn't have been able to carry them, and certainly, at least as far as the second set of tablets is concerned, what the technology of, quote, carving a stone is, it's not the way we carve stone today. Today, we have all sorts of, specialized tools in order to get stone and make it into kind of flat surfaces. I think it's fascinating. It's a fascinating thing. I've been to quarries specifically, in my own kind of research of this question, whatever, I'm interested in these things because I'm interested in how these ancient civilizations did this. You can take a chisel, and you get a piece of stone, and you can write and chisel on a stone. But it's not easy. It's very, very hard. To polish a stone, to flatten a stone, to dress a stone, is an extraordinary amount of work. Then to carry it, these are very, very heavy. So are they smaller, or are they clay, and are they made out of clay, and are they fired and then incised? And do we call the clay even afterwards? Well, you do. Some I would not, put a flag on the field for someone who calls a fired piece of clay a stone, because that's exactly what it is. Clay turns into stone when you fire it. So at least as far as an ancient, person is concerned. Susie, go ahead.
Yeah, that's just about what I was going to say. It's like when you think about, the ancient world and the artifacts that we have from there, you've got those, Akkadian clay tablets that, they wrote in whatever that, the Akkadit. And I mean, I've never seen one of those up close, but the impression I have is that they were little things.
They were little things. They were smaller and fragile. Okay, go ahead, Steve Parkoff, waving.
Yeah, I want to agree with Susie. All you have to do is go to the Jewish Museum, you go to the Metropolitan Museum, you see all these archaeology, all these tablets written with cuneiform.
I have a picture of one.
They're not big.
I have a picture of one that I'm
just
holding.
What you said, I'm
Yeah.
agreeing with you.
All right, I'll hold it in abeyance for now. All right, let's go on. A couple more things. So, and here's the where the golden calf. Joshua heard the sound of the people, the sound of the battle. He said, "Not the sound of song, not the song of failing, but the choral song is what I hear." And it was when he neared the camp, he saw the calf dancing. Moses' anger flared up. He threw the tablets. Vayashlech mi'adav et haluchot, vayishaber otam tachar ha'aron, and threw the tablets from his hands and smashed them beneath the mountain. Okay, all right, but it's smaller, so it's they're destroyed. All right, fast forward. God said to Moses,
Destroyed or broken?
well, broken. He vayashlech mi'adav et haluchot. Vayishaber otam. He broke them. Question then, good question, interpretive question. Are they destroyed? Are they irreparably broken? Yes, they're irreparably broken. You can't, take crazy glue and put them together, but you can retrieve the pieces. Okay, just like I have a vase and I've dropped the vase on the floor. I could put it together, or I could collect it and say I do it. Today, people. I'm not a big fan of this custom, but whatever. It's a custom where people take the glass at wedding. The chatan smashes the glass, and they collect the pieces of the glass and they put it in a mezuzah. And someone invented this and thought it was a good idea. And I'm going
And made money on it.
And they made money on it, but okay, fine. Not my thing. Okay. And the reason why it's not my thing is because the broken glass signifies all the chaos in the world. Why would you want to have that on your doorpost? Some would. Okay, go. All right, fine. I should be less judgmental in my older age. Okay. All right. Then God said to Moses, "Psol lecha shnei luchot avenim karishonim." Carve yourself 2 tablets of stone, like the first one. Pesal lecha. So he translates it, and he's probably not wrong, Everett Fox here. Pesal is carving, as opposed to anything to do with clay. This is a good philological question. Is when you shape clay, fire clay, would you call that would you use the verb pesal with that? And I got to, I'm going to turn to a Hebrew person. Ilana, you're shaking your head. I also agree. I think that pesal is
for a statue.
Exactly. Pesal is the act of carving, hammer, chisel, and what's the word you would use for clay? Kinei chomer, right? Or biyad chemar biyad ha kinei ha chemar biyad ha. It's like the hayotzer, right? God is the potter, hayotzer, not a pasal, right? So, of course, it's modern Hebrew or medieval, and that wouldn't be the same. But it's overwhelming the sense that there's a tool involved here, and he's got to carve it. Okay,
but it's not a good example to say psal because people will relate it to pesel.
Pesel, right? But it's the verb, and
Shouldn't be.
exactly. A pesel is something that is carved that becomes an object of worship. And so, here the Torah text is not going in that direction. It's saying it's going into a very technical direction, which is you need a piece of stone to write on. Okay, let's go on. So he carved 2 tablets, Vayifsol, Pesach, Vayifsol, 2 tablets.
Sorry, but
Yeah.
Pasul is from the same family of Vayakhel.
Yes, of course.
Pasul is not good.
It's so I'm going to be the narrow here, and the narrowest meaning is he's taking stone, he's carving it. Okay, it's not that he's making a pesel, an object of worship. He's taking a piece of stone that he's going to use to inscribe the 10 Commandments on. All right, so he started early in the morning, went up to Mount Sinai, took vayikach biado shnei luchot avanim. So this, I recall, teaching this with a more metaphoric interpretation, which is that, in the first moment of God's revelation, God is giving the tablets to human beings from heaven. But in the second one, the human being is bringing up the tablets to God, and God will write on the tablets there, okay? But it's that subtle difference of where is the blank paper? And the difference is the blank, I was saying paper, the blank paper comes from the sky and goes to heaven, goes to the human, whereas on the second one, the blank paper comes from the human and goes to the sky. That's very interesting difference. That's a very interesting difference because it says, I bring my mind for you to chisel on, okay? As opposed to you give me a piece of your mind. And the revelation is God gave us a piece of his mind and we smashed it. So here we're bringing up our mind and God is going to put something on our mind. I think there's something to meditate on. John, go ahead.
So Rabbi Sachs had this, I thought it was a beautiful statement. He compares a miracle from above to a miracle from below.
Okay.
He says that the miracle from below is more enduring. And even though God created the first set of tablets, it was a miracle from above, and that was smashed. But the second tablet he calls a miracle from below because Moses had a role in it.
I think he's speaking to a deep, homiletical truth here. It's something that we can all relate to, which is, that we are all kind of projecting into this ourselves, and as we experience learning, there's a philosophy of education, a philosophy of learning here, which is that the mind is there, and the mind is shaped by the text, as opposed to the text itself. Has I'm saying the same thing. It's you're bringing your mind to it, and however your mind is, that's how it's going to be shaped by the text, and it's a different dynamic. Susie, go ahead.
2 linguistic observations. So when you say psol lecha, and
Yes.
Ilana pointed out, you've got also pasul in there.
Yes.
But and I'm grasping at straws here, but sometimes the same shoresh will come into Hebrew from 2 different places where it means 2 different things.
Yes.
Moshe Held pointed out to us, I don't remember the pasuk, but he said that there's when Lishmor is talking about bearing a grudge. He said, and you'll see translations that say guard a grudge. He said it's got nothing to do with guarding a grudge. That Shin Mem Resh came into Hebrew from 2 different places, and in one language it means to bear a grudge, and the other one it means, Lishmor, we usually think of as Lishmor. The other thing is to borrow something I learned from Morty Schwartz when Gary Rensburg spoke, and he said he talked about Malay Shavua Zot and commented on the Masoretic joke. in Malay, and then Shavuot is written Ketiv Chaser. So you have got Malay Chaser. So every place that Luchot are mentioned here, it's Ketiv Chaser. There should be a shuruk.
Yes.
And so there's like this hint that something is going to be missing there. And
Interesting. Yeah. Lovely. These are, lovely homilies on these texts, and who's to say? But we can go anywhere with that, and appreciate that. All right, let's go. So we have that is after the golden calf. Moses takes the second tablets. He's there beside God for 40 days and 40 nights. Bread he did not eat, water he did not drink. He wrote down the tablets. So here it's Vayichtov ala luchot et divrei abrit aseret advarim. Who is the subject of Vayichtov? It sounds like it's Moses who is writing it on it. You could make a case that it's God. Okay, we'll leave that aside. Vayihi beredet Moshe mehar Sinai. He's now coming down the second time, and this is last week's Parsha, with the 2 tablets of testimony in Moshe's hands. When he came down from the mountain, he did not know his face was radiant because of having spoken well. And here I put my verse. Vayikach vayiten et ha'idut al Aaron, vayasem et abadim al Aaron, vayiten et ha'gabor. This is our verse. He took the pact, placed it in the ark, and fixed the poles to the ark, and placed the cover on top of the ark. And that's in our parsha this week. So in other words, he takes the second tablets, he puts them in the box, zeu, okay? And then we don't get any reference to the tablets until Dvarim, when he's telling the story again. Chapter 4, he announced to you his covenant, which are the 10 words, and he wrote them on the 2 tablets, so God wrote them. These words God spoke to your entire assembly at the mountain from the midst of the fire, the cloud, the fog, great voice, and he wrote them. He gave them to me. He's referring to the first ones here. When I went up to the mountain, you received the tablets of stone, the tablets of the covenant that God had cut with you. I stayed on the mountain 40 days. I did not. So he's referring to the first time. God gave to me the 2 tablets of stone written by the finger of God, first time, upon them, corresponding to all the words that God spoke. So these are the first tablets. And the 40 days, God gave me the 2 tablets, it's the covenant. I faced about, went to the mountain. Now the mountain was burning fire with the 2 tablets of the covenant, etc., etc. Carve, and then these are the second one, Ba'etahi. At that time, God said, carve yourself 2 tablets like the first ones, and come up to me on the mountain and make yourself a coffer of wood. I will write on the tablets the words that were on the tablets, the first ones that you smashed. Va'ichtov. So it's God who's writing here. Eradvarim asher al yu alachot harishanim asher shibarta v'samta baron. You put them in the coffer. So I made a coffer of acacia wood. It's not exactly Moses who made it. It's Bezalel who made it, but we'll leave that aside. I carved this 2 tablets of stone like the first ones. Va'al hara u'shnei luchot be'adi. I went up the mountain, took the 2 tablets. Then I faced about and came down the mountain. I put the tablets in the coffer, and they have remained there as God commanded me. And that's really important. So here is Moses in Deuteronomy saying, at the end of the trek through the desert, they're still in the box that I made. They're still in the box. God wrote them. And the last reference to the tablets in the Tanakh that I could find is exactly where you would expect it, which is Solomon's dedication of the temple. And Solomon brings the ark into the new temple, and the commentator, the narrator says these beautiful words, Ein baron rak shnei luchot avanim. There was nothing inside the ark but the 2 tablets of stone that Moses placed there at Chorev when God made a covenant with the Israelites after their departure from the land of Egypt. Okay, so I'm going to stop the share here. So we have a timestamp on that. By the way, it's 480 years after the Exodus. The box still exists, and the tablets are still there. At least yes.
But only 2 of them.
Only 2 tablets. They the chod, right? So this whole business of the first ones and the second one, that's midrash, fine. But more importantly, for our sake, is that it's a box, and and the tablets are in there. So my question really is as follows. So when you put something in, what's the purpose? Are you ever going to take it out of the box? Is anyone going to ever open the box and see this? And if so, interesting. And if not, then what role does it play in the imagination? So I want to just make an excursion with you here for a couple of I find these scenes very, very evocative, and I'll pull them up for us now. Okay, so first of all, let me do this one with you, which is to show that this idea of a box, a chest of for a covenant, is actually not only found in the Bible. This is the chest of the tomb of Tutankhamun, equipped with carrying poles, shown with poles extended. So this is an article, you can read it, it's called thetorah.com, the poles of the ark and Tutankhamun's chest. Right? Notice that the chest here is gabled, okay, not flat, and there's no covering on it. But the assumption is that they could open this and look inside all the time. Now you can read the article. This is basically an analysis of those things. Okay, I'm going to close and pull up another set of examples here. All right, and I'll just when I do research for these classes, I avail myself of all of the technology, and I asked AI, what are some examples? And you see here, I'm just going to try and make this large here, okay? So you were referring to this, Susie, before. This is Hittite. These are tablets from the archives of Hattusa, where thousands of diplomatic and legal texts were discovered. It's an archive. Look how big the tablet is, okay? This is a person's hand here, okay? And they're not that large at all, okay? And the writing is quite small. I'm not going to say you need a magnifying glass to read it, but you do need some good vision to look at it. And these are written cuneiform. My question to the ChatGPT was, do you have examples of this? And I'm interested in how texts got archived and what was the purpose of them, and what this does in the imagination. Okay, now I just want to find something interesting, which is here we go. No. All right, this will be interesting. Well, this reminds me of what people do and what many of us have done at different times in creating time capsules. Okay, you hide things away and you excavate them or unearth them, and this is a time capsule opening ceremony. The time capsule was deposited in 1962. And they are opening it. This is from a few years ago. I'll just give you a couple of frames of this. She's unscrewing. This is a box that was, can you all see this? Thumbs up. Can you hear? Yeah, okay. Here she is. She's taking it and opening it, okay? So she's opening the box. And she's going to pull out different things from the box because someone put it in there so that it would be the things would be taken out years later. Listen.
It says, Monty Schneck and his son Mark Allen did the final sealing of this capsule at 7:52 a.m. Thursday, July 23rd, 1964.
64. It's a very ceremonial extraction of a time capsule Someone put
First
it.
off, there's a lot of foil in here.
All right, I'm just going to fast forward a little bit.
A nice top hat.
Okay, so she takes out a top hat that was placed there. Here's another foil thing. Obviously, in 1964, they wanted to preserve things by putting it in tinfoil.
We have a pair of tennis shoes,
Wow.
a pair of dress shoes, apron, a blue tip match box.
It's a reveal moment, okay?
There it is, a heritage plate.
I'm going to guess this is all a packet of some of the things that they used or they had during their celebration. These look like the wooden nickels from the sesquicentennial.
Okay, so it goes on and on and on.
It is a guide from the
just
New
gonna
York
stop there.
World's Fair.
Oh, okay, just a
Miss
second.
Wadsworth that year won a contest for a trip.
Okay, so these are fascinating things, and you can imagine, the placing of something in a box creates the anticipation that at some point you will remove that thing from the box, like they did there, and give it meaning to the people. Meaning, there's an assembly around there. I think it's a great example. There's an assembly around, and the people are, reacting with it. They're reacting historically, and in terms of information, there's a certain amount of information that's being transferred here. We are witness to a historical moment where things are revealed to us when they were concealed 50 years ago, or how many ever years ago, 64. I think that YouTube was from the 10 years ago, 2014, and what you're getting there is that experience. They're getting both the historical experience of tactile connection and also a kind of content. Now, if you I have something a little more serious than this, and since we can do this, I don't want. This is not a trigger warning, but this is. There is a movie, a fascinating documentary called Hitler's Children. These are grandchildren of Nazi henchmen who have live with the legacy that their parents, grandparents were vile monsters, and they live their lives with that legacy. This was a documentary done in 2011, fascinating. And there's a scene right at the beginning in which they go to the archive, okay? And I want you to watch this scene, okay? Because in a way, anthropologically speaking, it's connected, even though it's the absolute inverse of what we're talking about. And we can learn from that, okay?
The Institute for Contemporary History, Munich.
Munich, Institute of Contemporary History. So look, here's an archive. The film was done by an Israeli, by the way, third-generation survivor. They're taking out a box. They have a box, a chest. And look how they're handling it. This is Rudolf Hess's grandson.
Rainer Huss wants to show a family heirloom to
Rudolf Hess was the
journalist
commandant
Beck.
of Auschwitz. So a very hermetically sealed thing, and they're taking it out to a display area. This is in an archive in Munich.
This fireproof chest, weighing 40 kilos, was a gift from Himmler to Rainer's grandfather, Rudolf Hess.
This is the grandson saying to himself,
Ich erinnere mich noch an den Tag, als meine Mutter letztendlich diese Sachen aus der Truhe nahm Also ich wusste damals nicht genau, was alles vorhanden war.
Remembers his mother taking everything out of the chest.
Yeah.
Sie öffnete halt diese
He
Truhe,
opened the
weil der
chest.
Deckel relativ schwer war. Und das Zeug
Quite
roch
heavy.
fürchterlich. Moderig. Es roch einfach
Stuff
alt.
smelled awful.
As a boy, Rainer was sure the box would reveal yet more horrors of his grandfather's reign as the Auschwitz commander. But instead, the box contained a series of photographs documenting the private life of the Höss family. Rainer's father and his brother and sisters growing up in a grand house, separated from the gas chambers by just a few yards.
Das hier hat man veröffentlicht.
This is what he wanted Eldad to see.
Und das ist
Das war das Tor.
der Villa.
Ja,
Und der Lager ist eigentlich
dahinter.
direkt dahinter.
Ja. Aber man sieht auf dem einen oder anderen Bild, wie die Kinder rausgehen zu diesem Tor, in Richtung kommenden Tor. Hier.
Ja.
I'm going to stop it here, okay? Because as usual, these things can we can go right into it, and I certainly recommend the documentary, and they show the picture of the gates of the private villa in Auschwitz. There was that movie a couple of years ago which won the Oscar, right? About on this theme, and they go visit Auschwitz, and they go visit the villa, and they go see the actual gate there, and that's part of the arc of the movie. In addition to the interviews with other notorious Nazi, the descendants of notorious Nazis. The point is, I when I saw the film and I saw that scene, it's not that I associated it directly with this lahavdil. What I'm saying is that there is, as part of our anthropology, part of what makes us human beings is the need to preserve things and the need to kind of create reliquaries of things that are important. In the religious sphere, it's important because of their sacredness. In the secular sphere, they're important because, as you saw, in the time capsule, they're banalities. Shoes, a plate, or whatever. It's banal, right? And in the instance of this, it's evil. These are things that are just so suffused with evil that it's almost as if the box itself radiates a certain evil from it, and even talking about it, looking at it, and I feel a kind of intrinsic. It's not nausea, but just like horror by this. And it's what was in there? Just moldy pictures, moldy photographs, right? But the photographs had contained on the information that associated them with evil. Okay, so then the question occurs to me as follows: Did they ever take the lid off the box? Did they ever take the lid off the aron? I don't know anywhere in the Torah where it says this. I don't know anywhere in the Midrash, in the Mishnah, in the Talmud. I have no way of knowing this. So I'll leave it at unknown. So we'll leave it at unknown, and then ask the following question, which is, if it was never meant to be opened, then what's the point? What's the point? What does it mean that they're in there? And that to me is a great question. It means that you and I will constantly imagine this, and that the imagination itself will engrave itself on our minds, that what we imagine to be there has so much radiant force to it that it still affects our lives to this day, that we are conveyed by the fact that there's something there that captivates our imagination and actually shapes our lives. Now, I want to take it one more step, which is, the in the second temple, the ark already didn't exist, and so the Talmud recounts how that when the Romans came to destroy the Second Temple, they went into the Holy of Holies, there was nothing there. The room was empty. It was invisible. And they couldn't get over this. What you do is you're praying to an invisible God. And that's the whole point. The whole point is we worship an invisible God. Because if we were worshiping a physical God, we turn out to be images of ourselves. All idolatry, in a sense, is really all idol worship is self-worship, because when you create an idol, you're basically projecting yourself or an enlightened image or an exalted image of yourself into the form. Okay, so as my late teacher Rabbi Elazar Silva said, the genius of having an invisible God is that it creates the possibility that everyone can conceive of the God in their own way without having an object. Susie, go ahead.
Yeah, so it's not an exact fit, but we have Sifrei Torah and pieces of Sifrei Torah that we don't read from, that we can't read from because they're psulim, and but we we do take them out, like for Simchas Torah, but we keep them.
Thank you for that. That's the punchline of the whole class, right? Which is as follows. So, and I'm glad you mentioned, because I forgot.
We don't bury. We don't. I mean,
so here's the homily. Here's the punchline.
One could say that we could bury them, but we don't.
No,
Yeah, but we bow to them,
I'm going to take
we
it.
kiss it.
Yeah. I'm going to go in a different direction, which is like this: the Shnei Luchot HaBrit, the tablets of stone, were deposited in the ark, and they were left there, and the ark is lost, and they're in their imagination, and it's empty. Okay, and so in effect, there was no quote unquote ritual purpose to the ark, in terms of a ceremonial opening of it, a ceremonial reading of the tablets, a ceremonial redepositing of the tablets, and a ceremonial resealing. There never was anything like that. However, we, the descendants of those people, we do this every week. We do this 3, 4, 5 times a week. Sunday, Monday, Thursday, Friday, Shabbos, twice on Shabbos. We're going into the ark, the symbolic replica of the mobile ark. We're taking out the Torah. We're opening the Torah. We're reading the Torah. We're rolling it back. We're putting it in. We're sealing the ark again. So, in other words, we're doing this all the time. Okay. So, and it's alive for us. All right. Now, the other thing that I have to place here is that, there is something else that's placed in a aron and that is deposited somewhere. Okay. And just, you'll give me the 5 seconds to say this, right? Where is it? It's not there. I will. It is the aron of Joseph. The aron of Joseph is a casket, okay? And Joseph's casket is
carried out when they leave.
When they leave, right? So, and the vocabulary that the Torah uses is not exactly the same, but here we go. The last verse in the book of Genesis. Vayamad Yosef ben 110 shanim. Joseph died 110 years. They embalmed him and put him in a coffin in Egypt. Vayachantu oto vayisem ba'aron. Vayisem ba'aron. All right. So, we have Moses vayiseming ba'aron. He places the tablets in Aaron, and we have Joseph's body being.
He was embalmed with no blood, and you wrote it in red. Thanks.
Okay, thank you. So do I want to go there and say life and death here? That the Torah is life, and the Torah gets placed in a box, and that as far as the tablets are concerned, they're gone, they vanish, the ark vanishes, but the people, us, the religious genius here is that you're constantly accessing the contents of the box, and it's constantly delivering its content to you on a regular basis. And that, there's something genius about that. In death, you're never supposed to open the box. Now, I have a video also, we don't have time for it. There's the Discovery Channel. They go to the Tutankhamun or some Egyptian tomb, and they open the sarcophagus, and it's a great moment. They see a body there, and the body is covered in linen, and you have a gold medallion there, and it's fascinating. Okay, the religion of ancient Egypt was you put him in a sarcophagus, and in the next life they open up the box, and you get to have your next life. Okay, but Judaism so abhors that idea, and yet it's so deeply part of a human being to put things away and to take them out, right? The most precious things that you have are the things that you shield, you cover in velvet, and you take them out, and then you display them, and then you put them back. And I find that, we all find that, I'm sure, fascinating. It strikes a certain deep humanity in us. Bob, go ahead.
Yeah, the article that I found while you were speaking called Carving the Tablets, I hope builds on what you said. And the final sentence is very interesting. Whether spiritual or physical, oral or written, the soul of the Torah was in the hands of the Jews. Even when the tablets were shattered, the spirit remained in the letters, and it is this which God gave to the Jews in order to uplift them. So even if you open the box, the letters would not be seen.
Yeah. Nice. They become spiritual metaphors for us that they engrave on us. All right. Well, there's what to think about. It's a good set of stories here. I really enjoyed that, and I hope you did too. And I look forward to next week and lots of things. Let's hope this war goes quickly and that it ends up with the results that we are all hoping for. Okay. Have a good week, everyone. We'll see you next week.
Well, thank you, Rabbi.
Bye-bye. Take care.